Welcome to the Word 2021. It's a daily devotional where we will be looking into God's Word every day to get inspiration and encouragement, instruction for our lives. Today we're starting with Genesis chapter 1. Here in Genesis chapter 1, it's the story of God. We see God as our Creator and as our Father. In verse 1, it starts with God. In the beginning, God. Everything that we're going to see, it was all because God initiated. God spoke everything into existence. His Spirit hovered over the darkness, the void, where there was nothing. And He spoke into existence everything that there was. Out of nothing, God created everything. We see God as the Creator, but we also see Him as a Father. What kind of a Father? He is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. That's what we see God is like throughout the book of Genesis. As we read chapter 1, we see again God is the Creator. He spoke everything into existence. Again and again, you will see those words, and God said. Simply from a word spoken by God, things were created. God performs miracles. That's who God is. Then we see what He created. In verse 3, which is Sunday, the first day of the week, we see that God spoke into the darkness and He created light. He separated light from darkness. And then on verse 6, which is Monday, He separated the waters into the sky and into the waters above and the waters below. In verse 9, which is Tuesday, God made the land and the seas. God created the land, dry ground. Then He created vegetation, seed-bearing plants, plants that produce fruit. Everything alive and growing on the land, God created on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, God created the sun, the moon, and the stars. Go back one moment, though, to verse 9. On verse 9, He created all the vegetation. By science, we understand that plants grow by the process of photosynthesis. They need the sun in order to grow, but God didn't create the sun until Wednesday, the very next day. So how did the plants grow? The answer is found in Revelation chapter 21, verse 23. There, God created a new heaven and a new earth and the new Jerusalem. And there is no sun that is needed, for it says that God gives light to the city. God is light, and in Him there is no darkness at all. Jesus is the lamp for the city. So the plants didn't need the sun because God created the light, and that's all the plants needed. On Wednesday, God did create the sun, the moon, and the stars, so we would understand the seasons, the days, and the years. Verse 20, which is Thursday, God created the fish and the birds. Verse 24, on Friday, God said, "Let the land produce living creatures," and all the wild animals were created. But then He also said on Friday, "Let us make man in our image." It's very important to notice the distinction there in verse 24. Let the land produce. And then God said, "Let us make man in our image." What does that mean? As you look at those two differences, we understand that we are related to heaven and not to earth. Evolution says that we came from the ground and then we evolved into who we are today. That's the exact opposite of what God's word says here. God created us in His image. The land did not produce us. God produced us. God created us. He formed us, as we'll see in chapter 2, and then He breathed into us the breath of life. We belong to heaven and not to earth. Our citizenship is in heaven. We are only here for a very short time. This is our temporary place to be. One day, when we leave this body, we are ushered into eternity because we are eternal. God created us. Then, in verse 27, as we continue in chapter 1, God created male and female. And then God blessed them and said that they were to increase in number. God set up the family, male and female. Why did He do that? The purpose, as we read verse 27 and 28, was so that we would multiply and create children. God's desire was for a man and a woman to become a single unit, and then children would be the offspring. And as we read in Malachi, God is looking for godly offspring. That's why He brought a man and a woman together. So, God set up the family from the very beginning. It was His idea, a husband and a wife, so that then godly children would be the offspring. Verse 31, after all God saw that He had made, He said, it was very good. This is the only time He says it was very good. After all the other days, except for Monday, God said, it is good. But after you and I were created, after people were created, Adam and Eve, He said it was very good. God created with us in mind. And then on Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, on Saturday, God rested. It was a literal 6 days. How do we know that? Because God affirmed it as days in the Ten Commandments. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11, God reaffirms that all of creation was within a 6-day period. He says in the fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you are to labor. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day He rested. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. God created. How do we know? Because God does miracles. What should our worldview be? What does Genesis chapter 1 tell us? It tells us that God performs miracles, that nothing is impossible for Him, that God can speak things into existence that are not. During this year of 2021, may I encourage you to like these devotionals every day. It's a great encouragement to me. But not only like them, but then share them as well. Put them on your page so that others will be able to hear God's Word on a regular basis. Thank you for being a part of the Word 2021.